Deep in the heart of Brazil, a band of capuchin monkeys teaches their young the secrets of survival. In one of the Earth's largest tropical wetlands, it's a mysterious world where fish pick fruit from trees and ancient mammals are at home underwater. And this unruly and improbable gang of gardeners shapes the tropical paradise in unexpected ways. The Pantanal, an immense wetland in Brazil that is one of the most pristine and biologically rich environments on the planet. It's a low plain that covers almost 54,000 square miles. 80% of it is underwater in the rainy season. Here on the southern edge, high up in the Bodoquena Hills, the dry season is about to start. But for now, the forest is so lush, it's like the Garden of Eden for this troop of brown capuchin monkeys. This is the most critical time of this youngster's life. So far, life for him has been easy. He's been riding his mother's back since the day he was born. But now, it's time to let go. It'll soon be time for her to mate again. It's his first day of independence, and he's at his most vulnerable. This little guy is bold from the get-go, and he's got the hang of using his prehensile tail. He's already ventured away from the watchful eyes of the group. His balance is still a little shaky. He's seen what his mother eats, but now that he's on his own and his choice of which leaves to eat needs some refining. For this young capuchin, birds of prey are among the most dangerous of predators. The crested caracara is a scavenger and not a threat to the monkeys. But they don't take any chances and alert each other with a call that says, "Flying predator." They all quickly scramble to protect the young. Hopefully, this youngster learned his lesson. If he wants to survive this season, he'd better stay close to the troop. This troop has 10 members. The dominant male is the focus of the group. He sports a handsome dark crest on the top of his head. It's why they're often called tufted capuchins. His job is to defend the troops' territory, and he fiercely protects them from predators. The females are smaller than the males, and the shape of their head is less angular. The other troop members are juveniles. Their rank within the hierarchy of the group depends on their age. They spend most of the day foraging for food, and now it's time for breakfast at one of their favorite outdoor picnic spots. Capuchins will eat just about anything they can get their hands on. Each type of food requires a different set of skills. So the young have a lot to learn, not just what to eat, but where to find it. Fruits and leaves are easy pickings. But leaves aren't that nutritious. And in a few weeks, the fruiting season will end. So the youngsters need to master the art of finding tasty and nutritious insects. Knowing where to look comes with experience. The best spots are under the bark and inside dead branches. They could get lucky and find eggs or juicy larvae. It takes a keen eye and patience. Ants are a favorite. There are lots around, and their powerful jaws can give a painful bite. But they're worth it. About 3½ ounces of ants can provide close to ½ an ounce of protein to a growing capuchin. But getting under the bark takes practice, which the youngster doesn't have. And after a few vague attempts, he goes back to a low-calorie diet of leaves. Capuchins are messy eaters. Researchers call it destructive foraging. The dead branches are easy to break off. With them gone, the trees stop sending resources to weak limbs and will redirect them to new growth. It makes a healthier forest. Better for the trees and the monkeys. The monkeys are keepers of their garden. It's only recently that scientists have discovered how intimately the lives of the trees and monkeys are interconnected. Unlocking those mysteries is inspiration for the research of Dr. José Sabino.
Aqui a gente tem trabalho para estudar peixe a vida inteira, né? Eu já estou há 20 anos e a gente não tem a pretensão de falar que descobriu tudo. Volta e meia você olha e descobre. Então você tem no âmbito, por exemplo, das cadeias ou das teias alimentares, muita coisa para descobrir. O que é que mantém uma fauna tão rica, tão numerosa, né, num ambiente como esse? São perguntas que a gente começou a entender, mas ainda tem muito estudo.
His studies reveal a surprising connection between the forest and an omnivorous river fish, the piraputanga. This fish has a taste and an eye for low-hanging fruit.
Aí é um contato visual mesmo. A piraputanga é um peixe diurno com olhos bem desenvolvidos e na água transparente, quando você tem uma árvore pendente com os frutos que estão sobre a superfície, ela calcula isso, vem. Muitas vezes ela chega, se o fruto não está muito maduro, ela morde e chega a se pendurar com a boca e o peso dela é que arranca o fruto.
Piraputanga can jump as high as 1.5 feet to nab these fruits. But for each hit, there are many misses. The prize is well worth the effort. The piraputanga's sense of hearing is as highly developed as its vision. It picks up sound waves that travel through the water as vibrations. Piraputanga rarely miss the splash of a fruit or a seed hitting the water's surface. As soon as one fish locates the source of the sound, the whole school moves in. The fish keep a watchful eye on the monkeys hovering over the riverbank. When the monkeys move off, the fish follow. It's a lot easier to scavenge what the monkeys drop than picking your own fruit. Because when it's dinner time for the monkeys, it's dinner time for the fish too.
O macaco funciona como um nuclear e a piraputanga como o animal que segue, gerando então essa conexão da floresta com o rio de uma maneira bastante curiosa e marcada por animais que são quase que símbolos, né? O macaco-prego é um símbolo dessa vegetação e a piraputanga, da mesma forma, um símbolo do vigor dos rios.
The impact of this unlikely codependence between species extends far above the water. These jumping fish are also forest gardeners. Once the seeds pass through their digestive tracts and into the river, some are swept by the current towards the riverbank. Odds are, some will germinate and grow into the trees of the lush monkey garden, completing another cycle in the highlands above the Pantanal. The monkeys and the fish depend on the forest, just as much as the forest depends on them to flourish. But it's only thanks to the crystal clear waters that the monkeys and the fish can interact in this way.
A água aqui é clara por conta do solo. O solo é formado predominantemente por rochas calcárias e no momento que essas rochas dissolvem, ela gruda nas partículas e isso faz com que a sujeira vá para o fundo do rio.
Underwater visibility here is more than 80 feet. The bright tropical sun and shallow water are ideal conditions for a variety of aquatic plants. And this lush vegetation provides shelter and nourishment for about 90 species of fish. But one of them doesn't have just a taste for plants. It's the dorado. He's a piscivore, a fish that eats other fish. Dorado means golden in Portuguese. He's not related to the familiar dorado, which is the Spanish name for mahi-mahi. His large head, powerful jaws, and razor-sharp teeth make him the top predator in these streams and rivers. Even this curimbata, not much smaller than the dorado, keeps its distance. Adult dorados can grow up to 3 feet. They're aggressive and smart predators, even at a young age.
Quando o dourado tem o tamanho de uma piraputanga, por volta de 30 a 40 centímetros, é muito comum que os dourados entrem no cardume da piraputanga para se disfarçar no meio delas e atacar peixes menores.
Hanging out with a school of fruit and plant-eating piraputanga is the perfect cover, and a young dorado needs all the help it can get. It's a challenge to hunt and a challenge to hide in these clear waters. Some fish use camouflage to blend into their surroundings. These 2 large cichlids blend well with their background, allowing them to protect their abundant offspring. The female only laid her eggs 36 hours ago, and they've just hatched into tiny fry. Several smaller fish are looking for a quick snack. Sometimes, the best defense is a good offense. And the female finally manages to fend off the would-be diners. This river is fed by an underground aquifer. Water under pressure comes bubbling up through openings all along the riverbed. The water source is high up these mountains and flows down from the Bodokena Hills. From the southern edge of the Pantanal, the mountain range stretches northwards for more than 125 miles. The rocks are limestone, made of calcium carbonate. As rainwater percolates down through soil, it becomes acidic and dissolves the limestone, transforming the landscape in a process that has been going on for millions of years. Calcareous minerals deposited by flowing water settle at the bottom of springs like this one. The minerals fuse with dead leaves and other organic matter to form these natural dams. Here, over millennia, water has dissolved the sedimentary rock and carved out steep cliffs that create updrafts for soaring vultures. Below the forest, deep underground, lies a dark and mysterious honeycomb of tunnels and caves. There are more than 200 caves hidden under the monkey garden, and many more yet to discover. The water is gone, but evidence of its persistent and relentless work is on full display. Geologists are still debating the sequence of events that led to the formation of these spectacular caves. Unfortunately, the geological clues that would have given them greater insights into their earliest stages of development have disappeared, dissolved by the water. So they look for answers in subterranean caves, where the water is still present. Some of these water-filled caves are so deep, no one has ever reached the end of them. Stalactites and stalagmites were formed long ago when the cave was dry. These spectacular dripstones, as they're called, are the result of water seeping through the limestone. When rainwater trickles down through the rock, the limestone dissolves and is carried by water through fractures in the roof of the cave. With time, the dripping water precipitates a tiny amount of the mineral calcite. Over thousands of years, the length and thickness of the calcite accumulation grows and eventually forms a stalactite on the ceiling, or where the drips land, a stalagmite that grows up from the floor. The deepest part of this cave is 130 feet below the surface. This chamber is known as the cone room because of the strange rock formations sprouting up from the cave floor. At the far end, a section has collapsed. Changes in this dynamic underworld are evident, even on the surface. Above, the pockmarked limestone cliffs bear the scars of erosion. When the walls of a giant cave collapsed, it created an enormous sinkhole. It's called the Buraco das Araras, the Macaw's Hole. This massive sinkhole is almost 325 feet deep and 1,600 feet wide. Now it's home to a large number of raucous and colorful red and green macaws. Modesto Sampaio, a farmer, bought the land back in 1986. After the sale, he discovered that he had signed up for a giant hole and a new kind of adventure.
Meus pais já moravam aí, então eu queria ficar perto deles para tirar o sustento para a família. E na época eu via falar o buraco dos araras, mas não sabia que eu estava comprando ele na época. Aí na mensura, estava medindo, conferindo a terra, o agrimensor falou para mim: "Seu Modesto, o senhor é dono desse buraco?" Eu falei: "Você está brincando, rapaz?" Ele falou: "Não, foi esse o documento."
Modesto noticed a few pairs of red and green macaws had taken a liking to the sinkhole. In the Pantanal, as elsewhere, parrot populations have been in a steady decline. Modesto knew that this land had once been home to a much larger number of macaws, but they'd left when the hole became a dump site.
Eles encontraram lá pneu, encontraram garrafa, tudo que era tipo de lixo, pedaço de carro. Ele estava todo destruído, não tinha mais vegetação, era totalmente destruído.
Determined to make a difference, Modesto made a plan. He called in the fire department and all his family and friends. Together they started a massive cleanup and removed 4 giant truckloads of trash. He also took on the role of gardener and planted boca uva palm trees that produce rich, fruity nuts, a favorite of the macaws.
Aí eu falei para a mulher, se eu conseguir 10 araras voando aqui dentro, eu sou o mais feliz, né? Aí um dia eu sempre gosto de caminhar de manhã cedo, eu vi uma revoada de, calculei umas 50, né? Falei, mas Deus foi bom demais. Eu pedi 10, me mandou essa quantia.
Now the sinkhole is a refuge for over 100 pairs of macaws. These spectacular birds mate for life and breed just once a year, during the dry season. It's just the beginning of the mating season. Love is in the air, and so are their piercing calls. As for Modesto, he's still farming, but he's also welcoming visitors to his macaw sanctuary. Back in the monkey garden, the capuchins are taking a break before moving on to their next feeding spot. The youngest play and wrestle. It's a way to refine their motor skills. The juveniles are always hungry, and they're quite skilled at catching small animals. Frogs, lizards, and mammals win top prize. They're packed with protein. The adults are busy, blissfully grooming. An individual's rank in the troop hierarchy dictates the amount of grooming they'll give and receive. The higher up you are, the more you receive, but in a surprising twist, the higher up you are also means the more you give. So the top groomer is the dominant male. He spends the most time engaged in grooming. But now he signals it's time to move. There's a tree on the other side of their territory that should be ripe for picking. Right on cue, the Piraputanga are also on the move. They lose track of the monkeys when the troop leaves the river's edge and disappears into the forest. The Capuchin's territory is about 2,000 acres. On average, they'll travel about a mile a day on their arboreal highways, even more when food becomes scarce at the height of the dry season. The group waits for the youngest to catch up. The dominant male stays in the middle of the troop. The lower-ranking adults are at the front of the pack. They're the first line of defense in case of an attack. This young one is almost 4 years old, and he travels these routes with ease. Finally, the group reaches its destination, a fig tree covered with ripe fruit, and there are other fruit trees nearby. The young male gobbles them up as fast as he can, but he's just broken the golden rule. The dominant or alpha male always gets first dibs. The young male is not ready to challenge the alpha male and quickly retreats. Peace returns as they spread out to feed. Below, on the forest floor, the sound of quarreling monkeys lures an agouti to the base of the tree. The agouti is a South American rodent the size of a large rabbit. And just like the pirapatanga fish, its sensitive ears are attuned to the sounds of the feasting monkeys in the treetops. The soft thud of fruits and nuts hitting the forest floor is his invitation to the traveling feast. Like most rodents, the agouti has sharp front incisors, good for gnawing on and cracking open tough nuts. Even though it's still early in the dry season and there's plenty of food, the agouti likes to plan ahead. They bury thousands of nuts and seeds and keep the locations fresh in their memory by revisiting the cache sites every 4 or 5 days. The caches contain emergency rations for when the drought sets in. If the agouti never returns, the buried seeds won't go to waste. Some of the fruits and some of the nuts will grow into trees, making the agouti another gardener in the forest. Despite their small size, agouti play an important role in the regeneration of the forest. another forest dweller that helps to tend the forest garden, but it has a much larger impact. Tipping the scale at more than 650 pounds, the lowland tapir is the largest land mammal in South America. It's one of the few giant mammals that survived the late Pleistocene extinctions, a little over 10,000 years ago. They look much the same now as they did then. Their great appetite and sheer bulk make them an important landscaper in the monkey garden. They open trails in the forest as they travel in search of food. They're herbivores and eat almost 100 pounds of leaves, shoots, branches, grasses, and fruits each day. Just like the agouti, they disperse seeds as they roam about the forest. But these are larger seeds, and they spread them over a wider area, as their home range is about 600 acres. Although they look like pigs, tapirs are related to horses and rhinoceroses. Tapirs are excellent swimmers and divers. They can stay underwater for several minutes and have a short prehensile trunk, which is really an extended nose and upper lip that they use as a snorkel. It's one of the tricks that helps them escape their main predator, the jaguar. In the water, they eat aquatic plants, wash off ticks, and cool down. His splayed toes help create traction in the slippery mud. He's a bulky animal, but doesn't make much noise as he heads back into the forest to wait for cooler temperatures to start feeding again. He'll be waiting alone. Tapirs lead solitary lives and only reproduce once every 2 years. Their slow reproductive rate makes them particularly vulnerable to habitat loss, and their population has been dwindling. But here in the Pantanal, several initiatives have been put in place to monitor and protect this endangered species. As the dry season sets in, the waters of the monkey garden start to recede and leave salts and minerals on the sunburned rocks. It's a microscopic buffet for these butterflies, especially for the males, who need salt to reproduce. Butterflies are easy prey. About half of them are killed before they have a chance to mate and reproduce. They can be quite territorial, but here it's common to see butterflies of different species share an area, like this Kramer's 88 in the middle of a group of other butterflies. There's strength in numbers, as it's harder for predators to pick out an individual. As temperatures soar past the 100 degrees Fahrenheit mark, even cold-blooded butterflies need to cool down, so they close their wings. Tropical butterflies are often light-colored, so their scales reflect light and absorb less heat. The youngest member of the Capuchin family is still learning the ropes under the watchful eye of the whole troop. His mother isn't the center of his world anymore. But he needs his extended family for guidance, learning by example and by experience. In just a few months, food will be scarce, so he'll rely on the troop's intimate knowledge of its territory to survive the long, dry season of the Pantanal. Their piece of paradise is inextricably linked to the seasons. But for now, these unlikely gardeners flourish in the heart of Brazil, in this spectacular tropical wetland.